All right, intro to Node-RED. We're going to build some dashboards and use some control surfaces for your Shack. This is really cool stuff. So I'm glad that I could present, and thanks for everyone for attending and inviting me to talk. So what is Node-RED? Node-RED is a flow-based programming tool. It's based on Node.js, and don't get scared of JavaScript. I am not a programmer. I didn't take any programming classes in college, so if I can do this, I think you can too. This thing runs virtually on anything. If you can basically boot it up, it will run on it. I run mine on a Raspberry Pi 24/7, so it runs all the time. That is kind of the key that you want to make this thing run, Node-RED to run in the background, so it's up all the time. So you don't have to fuss with it to whenever you boot your Windows laptop or your computer up and then start Node-RED up. This thing hides all of the boilerplate code and allows quick programming. So back in the day, you might had to build like a TCP/IP stack from scratch. Now it is basically a node. You drop the node into a workspace, you do a little configuration, and it's up and running. All of that back-end stuff is done. You don't have to program that stuff anymore. And also, again, no programming necessary. It gets you up and quickly running on Node-RED, and there's basically things, flows that you can import after you get Node-RED up and running, and you can be up and running within literally a couple of minutes. Down here on the screen is an example flow that you can see. I'm going to get into some flows later, but this is what a flow in Node-RED commonly looks like. So what can we control with Node-RED? And keep in mind, this is all stuff that you can put in your Shack to run your station remotely. It will control almost anything that has an Ethernet or a serial USB output or input, including radios, amplifiers, tuners, rotors, antenna switches, relays. Basically, if you can get input or output out of that device, you can control it through Node-RED. Probably somebody has already completed a flow for this your device. So really, it's a matter of kind of downloading from the group's IO places that we've already put our flows up on the website, and you tweaking what you want, or if you're a big nerd, you can program your own stuff. Why do we use Node-RED? So these are the keys on why I use Node-RED, and I think you'll find some of these things that you'll like for your Shack. So it allows one location to control everything in your Shack. So just think you've got one screen in front of you, and you can see every single device and what the status is of that device in your Shack. It's great for like contesting. It's great for DXing. It's great just to see what is going on with your devices in your Shack in one location. Automation. The great thing about Node-RED is you can program things in the background to do 5 things if you click one button. So let's say you're contesting at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you switch from 20 meters to 40 meters. Well, maybe you have to tune your radio, and then you have to control your amplifier, and let's say you've got bandpass filters. You can program that in one button to literally do all of those things in the background whenever you tune your radio to, or take your radio band from 20 meters to 40 meters. So all of that stuff can be done automatically in the background through Node-RED. Again, I touched on real-time feedback from devices. Again, you can see the status of all of your things in your Shack at your fingertips. You can integrate non-ham radio devices into your Shack. I saw somebody who put a on-air sign above their Shack, and it told the family members whenever they were on the air or whenever they were not on the air. So there's different things that you can integrate. You can integrate weather sensors. Somebody had a wind thing that what is that? An anemometer, anemometer. I don't know. But anyway, the thing that has the wind tells you how fast the wind is going, and it would lower their tower whenever it got over a certain wind speed. You can email or SMS alarms in your shack for severe weather. We've got this at one of our contest stations. If lightning strikes within 25 kilometers of our shack, it shuts everything down automatically. And we can override that, but we have that going all the time. So therefore, whenever we're not around, it just automatically shuts down the shack. And then also, you can do some audio and visual stuff. Like if you've got a high SWR, it can notify you via audio that your SWR is high, and that helps if you don't have Node-RED up and running, you can get those audible alarms. So this is more of why we use Node-RED. We monitor everything in one location, real-time feedback, command and control, custom alarm, eliminate errors. So again, how many times at 3 o'clock in the morning have you been contesting or DXing? And I've done this where I've put my radio on 40 meters, but I don't tune the amp to 40 meters, and I'm sitting there trying to call CQ and wonder why nobody's coming back to me. Well, my amp is on 20 meters. So we've automated all of this stuff. So therefore, again, you've got that one button that whenever you want to go to 40 meters, you hit the 40 meters button and everything switches. So how does this all connect? So you can see all the different types of devices here that all connect to Node-RED. The Raspberry Pi here is the common thing that you want to run Node-RED on. And again, your power device, your radio, your amp, a tuner, coax disconnect. These are Paradan radio antenna disconnects. They're really great. Whenever you apply 12 volts, the antennas latch, and if you remove 12 volts, the antennas disconnect. So we use those at the shack. And yeah, so this is some of the things that you can control via Node-RED. So here are some examples of what you can do in Node-RED. So this is a Flex setup here. You can see that there's some Flex radio nodes and flows here that are on this dashboard. These are on our Groups.io website. Stephen Hauser has programmed all of these flows that you can download for your Raspberry Pi or a Node-RED setup and control your Flex radio. You can see that I think this is Dave WO2X's setup. He's got a single tower here, and this is a graphic that you can click here, and it will rotate your antenna to wherever you click on the map. And then he's got some IOs here, some host pings. So another thing you can do is ping different hosts to see if they're up, and also get the latency ping time from them. And then obviously he's got his Node-RED, his Flex radio screen down here. Here's some other control surfaces. These are buttons up here. You can see that there's some LEDs. There's some power meters here. Again, more buttons. Over here is a lot more power meters. And then some buttons over there. More screenshots. Here is another screenshot. Here's a geochron type map. Here's my buddy Mick's screen here, and the cool thing about this is you can do CSS style sheets, and they don't all have to be the same. Your Node-RED instances don't have to all be the same. They can take on a different look if you're into CSS style. Here's a setup with 3 towers. You can see there's a lot going on here. Here's our contest station with our 3 towers, our 2x6 pack array solutions, and then we have some antenna switches out on the base of the tower that we switch the different antennas on the tower. can also do propagation maps. Here's another geochron. Here's some weather forecasting that you can integrate with your Node-RED. Here's a cluster server aggregator. So I wrote this a while ago where it takes all of the spots from all the different cluster servers and also PODA, and it aggregates them into one cluster server that I can connect to via Telnet. Here's a Node-RED dashboard, a contest dashboard that I wrote. So this integrates with N1MM, and N1MM sends UDP data to this this flow, and it displays all of your contest stuff on Node-RED. We use this out in kind of a common area for whenever we're doing multi-multis, so people can kind of keep track of how the contest is doing, and you know, instead of hovering over somebody's shoulder to figure out what the score is, we can bring this up on a computer and kind of get some stats of the contest. So let's get into some flows here. If you're going to get into Node-RED, I suggest that the first thing that you buy is one of these I think this is a Digital Loggers Web Power Switch Pro. This thing has got 8 switchable relays. Here, it's controlled by Ethernet. Here's the flow that controls it, and it's a very basic flow. And this is the interface that can go on your dashboard. These buttons here are clickable. So I believe the first switch I've got is a Dell PC. I got the fiber router, a Netgear switch, a Raspberry Pi, a camera, and then also I've got my flex power supply and a miscellaneous power supply. So all of these outlets get switched by these buttons. So these right here in the middle of the flow are the actual buttons that get displayed on the dashboard. Here's another example of some flows where you can monitor your Raspberry Pi. So I just took a random group here that I've had on my Node-RED dashboard. And here what we're doing is we're pulling the Pi for temp and loads, memory use, disk usage, and then a reboot and a shutdown button. And then I've just placed those graphs on the dashboard along with these gauges, and it monitors my Raspberry Pi, so I can take a look to see, you know, disk space, CPU, memory used, and then also the most important is probably the temperature. It gets pretty hot where we've got our Pis, and we like to see what the temperature is doing to make sure that the Pi doesn't overheat. So what is a node? So a node is the basic, the basic common thing that you put on your dashboard to build a flow. So I've got 3 different nodes here. The first that you'll probably always use to start a flow out is a timestamp. So this basically is the injector that starts a flow, and whenever you drag this over to the control surface and you start building a flow, if you double click on the node, usually a dialog box comes up and you can configure the parameters of that node. Every node has got some type of parameters. So in this case, if you double click on this timestamp node after you've drug it over to your surface, it will say, okay, message payload is timestamp. That is there's a drop down here that you can inject different types of things. You can inject a string, you can inject a character value. So every single node has got some type of configuration that you probably have to do in order to get that flow to work. Also, we've got debug nodes that you can put into a flow, so you can debug the information that is coming through a flow, and this is always good because usually if you're trying to troubleshoot something, you want to figure out, you know, where is my value changing, or what am I doing wrong in a flow. The debug node is your friend. It always helps you figure out what you need to change. And then a switch node is kind of like a big if then else statement. So if this, go there. If that, go there. So this is probably one of the 3 common nodes that you will use in Node-RED whenever you build your first flow. So let's take a look at a sample flow breakdown here. So we've got an inject node, so we're going to do this every single minute. So we're going to run this flow every single minute. Let's say we're going to go get data from a website. So we've got an HTTP request here. You can see I've got a debug node that is coming out of this HTTP request. So it's going to tell me what is actually coming out of that website after this node goes and gets that data. So let's say, for instance, we're going to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. So this is a node that you can download that it converts a value from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And then it comes out of this. Let's say it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So then we say if data equals a value, so let's say if degrees equals 100 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to change the payload that we're passing along that node. We're going to change that data to a string from a number. We're going to change that value to a string, and we're going to say that that string says running hot. And then we're going to display that information on the dashboard. And let's say we're also going to shoot that string out to a port, a TCP port that we created on port 7300. So that is a basic flow breakdown of what a flow looks like. Once you get Node-RED up and running, this is the workspace that you program all of your flows in. Over here is your palette. So these are all of your nodes that you can use to create your flows. And then we've got tabs over here, so you can break your flows up into tabs so they're logical workspaces. Over here is the deploy button. So this is after you've created all of your flows. You're going to hit your deploy button, and that is going to compile your flows. And then your sidebar menus here, this is where your debug, and this is where you're going to basically put all of your nodes that have values for your dashboard. This is where you're going to configure your dashboard, and there's some other things up here in the sidebar menu. And then the sidebar is just some information about different nodes. One of the key things that people get confused with is after you install Node-RED, your workspace here is at port 1880. So it's the IP address of your Node-RED install, and then port 1880. Your UI, your dashboard is at /UI. So it would be, let's say, 192.168.1.1, let's say, :1880/UI would be your actual dashboard that you click on buttons and you see all of your information. The nice thing about Node-RED is they have a GUI interface that you can drag and drop your different dashboard nodes and resize them into or on Node-RED. So this is what the GUI page looks like. And I will point out here, we're going to take a look at a group called Raspberry Pi Status and Control. And you can see what the group looks like. And you can group these in logical places. So I've got a group called Power Switch Miscellaneous, Flex Power, Web Relay, Network Status, Weather at E-Layer. And those groups are created over here in the Layout tab. But these are the actual modules that you drag over from your workspace. And once you put them in logical groups, they populate here on the GUI, and then you can resize them as you need them to make them look nice on the dashboard. So I just took this group here that is on the GUI here and blew it up. So therefore, we've got this Raspberry Pi Status and Control. So these are gauges. So you can see this one's called CPU temperature, and this is a gauge that goes from 0 to 150, and it's in Fahrenheit. Memory used goes from 0 to 4,000. So these are what these are what the dashboard looks like whenever you program and you put these in the GUI. This is what the actual dashboard looks like. So this dashboard group is six, has a width of 6, and it's got it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 units tall. And each one of these gauges is 3 by 3. And then the CPU temperature is 6 by 4. This reboot button is 1 by 6, and the shutdown button is 1 by 6. So you can see how the different GUI lines up with what it looks like on the dashboard. Here's some more examples here. We've got weather, and then here's another gauge. So you've got a circle gauge versus just a half moon gauge. Here is a text. So this is the outside temp. It's 49 degrees. And then I've been graphing the outside temp here in a chart. Here is an LED. So if there is a storm coming, this LED will turn red. And then we talked about that lightning shutdown process. So if we want to override this, we can turn the lightning detector off. So therefore, if we're in the middle of contesting and we know the storm is coming, but we want to make sure we contest until the lightning comes, we can turn the lightning suppressor off so it doesn't shut down the station. I put this slide in here to talk about debugging. That debugging node is your friend. It is the most probably important node that you will use whenever you go down the rabbit hole of programming your first Node-RED flow. And it's pretty powerful. You can use different parameters for the output on what you want to see. And here is what a typical debug output looks like. It's got different objects that you can drill down into, and then this debug node is in your side panel and looks like a little bug. And you can turn these debug nodes on and off by hitting this button right up here. So if it's got a thing to the right or the left, it's usually a button that you can turn on and off these nodes to help you debug different flows. So where to start? Node-RED.org. That's where you want to start your journey here. It's got a ton of information. There is a Raspberry Pi specific install that you want to take a look at if you're going to run a Raspberry Pi. There's also instructions on how to install this on Windows and on a Mac if you want to do that. Here's some resources. So the Node-RED website. Node-RED has got a YouTube page. It's not very, it's not up to date, but there is a lot of good resources out there. This Opto video is another good one. They concentrate on industrial automation, but there is a lot of good info, basic info on how to program different things in Node-RED. There's also a Reddit out there. If you like Reddit, there's an active community that you can ask questions. But the holy grail of the Node-RED world in ham radio is on Groups.io. So if you just Google Node-RED for ham radio, you'll find the group. I think there's like 2,500 people that are a part of the Groups.io. And this is where we talk daily about Node-RED. These are where all the flows are located. So if you got like, a KX3, a K3, or a Flex, or an ICOM radio, and you're looking for a flow, it's there. It's in the files directory under the Groups.io. And a lot of the work has already been done for you. All you have to do is import the flows that people have uploaded to the Groups.io. Also, there is a much longer presentation on my YouTube channel. I did a presentation at Dayton and then also in Hamcation in Orlando. If you want to see the full length video, there is that on my website. And I also have probably, I want to say 25 or 30 other Node-RED videos out there. If you want to get started on a Raspberry Pi, but you're a little intimidated, I've got you working from, I've got an SD card and I've got a Raspberry Pi. What do I do next? I walk you through the whole process of installing Node-RED and show you a bunch of examples on how to get started. So you check out my channel. You'll find the longer presentation, but you'll also find all of those resources. So that is my intro to Node-RED.